Hello and welcome to the Recognise What's It Like podcast, a place where we explore what it's like to live in someone else's shoes and the stories that makes life meaningful and important. Today, I'm joined by Simon. Simon Thomas is a TV presenter best known for his time on Blue Peter and now Sky Sports Soccer Saturday. He is also the author of Love Interrupted, has hosted 3 series of the podcast Life Interrupted, a bit of a theme, and uses his platform to help break the stigma around loss and mental health. As well as this, he is also a husband and proud dad to 3. Before we jump in, don't forget to like and subscribe to stay up to date on all our recognised podcast episodes. Simon.
Hello.
Hello.
Nice to see you.
Oh, so good to see you. Thank you for coming on the
pleasure.
What's It Like podcast. I like to start every episode by recognising my guest. And do you know, when I was thinking about you, did you ever see in schools the investor in people
Yes. Yeah.
thing? So I had a picture of that when I thought about you. And I think you really are an investor in people. And yeah, you are. And you're a real champion of people. And I think you're a voice often for people you might be voiceless. You use your platform to advocate. Sometimes like you get quite angry, but in a really good way, I think.
Yeah.
You're really like, you have such a heart for social justice. And I think it's like so evident, but I've also been on the receiving end of that. And just like, since I met you from the early days of Recognise, you've always been like a yes man. And you've always just like got behind us and cheered me and Joel on.
Yeah.
So we're starting the business and the foundation. And you are a really, really special person.
Oh, thank you. I
So
love
special.
encouraging people.
Yeah. Well, you do. So be encouraged. It's honestly
That's
a joy
really
to have you
helpful.
here.
Thank you.
For those that don't know you, could you just share a bit about who you are and what's important to you?
Do you want a nutshell?
Yeah, your story. Quick story.
So who am
Story
I?
time,
As a son of a vicar.
Yeah.
I had a dream about getting in broadcasting when I was at university. I spent 4 years trying to crack it. It was a very hard industry to get into and became a Blue Peter presenter at the 3rd time of asking, got rejected the first 2 times. Had an amazing 6 years on that show. Then I kind of transferred into sports broadcasting. Again, that was really hard. People didn't want to take on a kids presenter, but made it to Sky in 2005 and spent 11 and a half amazing years there, working my way up to the Premier League football. And really over the last few years, just like so much in my life has changed. My first wife, Gemma, died very suddenly back in 2017. I had a son at the time, Ethan. Still have a son, and he was 8 years. And just everything changed in terms of what was important to me. Yeah, my career was important to me, of course it was. Relationships with people important to me. But it kind of opened my eyes to how much need there is in others and how much need there is for us to talk about some of the difficult things in life, whether that is grief. I had my own battles with mental health as well. So really over the last few years, I found myself back doing some familiar things. I'm back at Sky Sports now doing Soccer Saturday, which is amazing,
A dream,
but challenging. But also now with a very different kind of perspective on life and faith and the world. So in many ways, my life feels completely different, yet in some respects, the same as it always has done.
Wow. And it's so admirable that you use your platform to talk about these things. And I think so often people in life do they have these massive moments and things that happen to them, and life can kind of never be the same because you just suddenly, everything shifts. It's like, oh, that actually isn't important, and things come into alignment. If people were to spend a day in your shoes,
Good grief. Poor them.
be really fun if you're a football fan. What would they find surprisingly easy, and what would they find unexpectedly hard?
I think, are we talking about in terms of what I do for a job?
Anything.
What they would find,
or you answer it any way you like.
What they would find surprisingly easy is how much fun you can have presenting football. That's just, people think it's all serious and stuff. It's not. It's just
Why?
great
Why is it fun?
Because it's not life and death.
Yeah.
It's 11 men or 11 women kicking a ball around against 11 other men and women.
Yeah.
It's just a game. And it brings entertainment. It's supposed to release people from the humdrum of life.
Yeah, which it definitely does.
Yeah, and I think if they join me for a day on Soccer Saturday, they'd have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
That's the show is, it's about information, it's about keeping people up to date. I think if they join me for a day, they'd also understand that being a father to 2 kids who are, I've got 3 kids. Ethan's now 15, but I've got Talitha who's 2.5 and Theo who's just coming up to a year. So they would find out that parenting full of joys though it is, it's really hard. And just, I take my hat off to my wife, Dorina, because she spends every day with them, but it's full on.
Yeah.
Really full on. They find that surprisingly difficult.
Yeah. Unless
but not if they're a parent.
They're
I know what this is like.
Yeah, this is easy.
Yeah.
Let's get into your what's it like. So, Simon, your first what's it like is what's it like to be a Blue Peter presenter. I'm so excited to talk to you about this. I've actually come
Is that because you wanted to be one?
Yes. How did you know?
Because lots of people
Oh,
did.
really? Oh, it's not unique.
No, lots of people.
You're not special, love.
No. Join the queue.
I did actually always want to be a Blue Peter presenter.
Did you?
Yeah, definitely. I don't know if I probably wanted to be a lot of things, but that was definitely
Did you do anything about it?
No, I don't think so.
Think how different things
to be
could have
honest,
been.
it's actually maybe more of a dream. It feels quite vulnerable to share here, but like, this is a podcast about being vulnerable, so I'll share it. But no, one of my dreams is like to be a TV presenter.
Is it still?
Yeah. More recently,
F1.
Yes.
I know you're nuts about F1.
You do. I am nuts. I've got an F1 Lights Out group.
Are you? Is it called Lights Out?
It's called Lights Out.
Wow.
It kicks off every week. I was up at 7 a.m. watching the Chinese Grand Prix this weekend.
I was with my niece who's mad about
Who do
F1.
you support?
What driver?
Driver and team.
You see, I'm not as into it as you. So I was a Mercedes. I admire Lewis Hamilton a lot. I know it's not his everyone cup of tea.
Yeah.
I just do. I think I look at his story from where he started. He came on Blue Peter.
Yeah.
Before my time.
When he was really young.
With
I've seen that clip.
Car in the Blue Peter Garden.
And was amazing.
Yeah. So I think when I saw that and knew his connection to the show, I kind of followed his progress.
Yeah.
I just think he's a hugely talented driver.
Mm-hmm.
We've really gone off on a tangent.
No, but
here,
this is great. I'm a Lando Norris fan.
Are you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure about Lando. Yeah, I like him.
I just really like his personality. He's like a really, from when you can tell, you can tell like who's a good guy. He's a good guy. He's cheeky. He doesn't take it too seriously. He's giving Max a run for his money. There's a lot more competition in the sport.
Someone needs to.
Exactly. Yeah. But I said I do love Max. I used to love Max. Anyway, we could go on. We could
Welcome
go
to
on.
The F1 podcast.
It's lovely having a bit more competition though in the sport.
100%.
This is my audition.
Any sport needs that.
All right. Well, I've got just something prepped for you. Here we go.
Oh yes. It could be 5 o'clock on a Monday. 5 o'clock on a Wednesday.
Give us the opening credits. Go on.
5 o'clock on a Friday. Well, we let the titles run, and then as this was coming out, we'd probably each have a line saying what was coming up on today's show.
Yeah.
So coming up on today's show, Matt takes Meg out for a little walk in a surprising place. Connie will be showing you how to make an excellent Mother's Day card, and I will be on the latest stage of my climb up Mount Kilimanjaro. On time as well.
Oh my gosh. That was
You never lose
iconic.
it. You
That
never lose
iconic. Gosh, what an experience.
Amazing.
Probably, was it one of the best experiences of your life?
Yeah, for the rich variety. The reason I wanted to do it is I had grown up watching it and I loved the spirit of adventure. Mm-hmm. So I wasn't overly... Listen, I was definitely interested in what it would be like to be famous. I'd be absolutely lying through my teeth if I wasn't.
Right.
But ultimately, I wanted to be a broadcaster. I caught the bug at university and I'd watched Blue Peter growing up. I loved the travel. I was very untravelled. I was son of a vicar. We didn't have the money for travel. We had one foreign holiday in my entire childhood, which is more than some people get, but we just weren't very travelled.
Yeah.
I love the adventure of it, the amount of different things they got to try, whether it was parachuting, whether it was jumping out of a helicopter, whether it was climbing a mountain, like I just mentioned, whatever it was, that you would get to try so many different things. And I love the art of communication. I love working with kids as well. So this was like the dream. But to get it was so tough. And as I mentioned right at the start, I tried at least twice and just got the rejection letter back. We'll keep your details on file. And then landed the job at the end of 1998, started on it in January 1999. And just the most incredible 6 years. Like I sometimes get reminded of things we did. Someone will say, oh, I saw this clip of you on YouTube. Or do you remember when you did that? And it's not like you've forgotten them, but sometimes they need to be brought back to the front of your mind. And you think, goodness me.
There was probably so many all the time.
How fortunate was I to do that? Like 25 countries I did over the course of those 6 years.
Oh my gosh.
So I was incredibly blessed to do it. I mean, I'd like to think I knew it at the time. I remember sometimes having a word with myself coming out of the television centre on Wood Lane car park after a live show. And listen, we all have bad days at work. It doesn't matter how good your job is. It can be the best job in the world. You'll have your bad days. That's just life. And sometimes I come out, oh, flipping today was awful. And then you go, but I am doing the best job ever. And one day I'll look back on this and think, I wish I could have had 10 years or 12 years or still be doing it. I'm too old for it now.
Why was it awful? What were the days
just
that
because
made
you'll
it
have
hard?
a day where
Was it
you're
just...
feeling, you have to put on a front when you present TV, whatever TV you do. So if you ended up, Annika, in F1 presenting, you will have days where maybe there's stuff going on at home. Maybe you're physically not that good at the moment. You're just tired or whatever it might be. You can't carry that on air at 5 o'clock on BBC One on Blue Peter. You've got to show up. And so to an extent, like we do in life, you have to put on a bit of a mask. Now people say, well, then it's not really you. No, it is. It's a version of me. I used to get people come up to you and say, you don't sound like you do on the TV. I said, well, I'm not going to walk around Tesco's in presenting mode. Do you know what I mean? Coming up on aisle 22, we have some amazing fresh fruit. Do you know what I mean? You can't. So, there's a certain act to it, but my goodness me, it was amazing. It really was.
So you applied for it 3 times. Did you what did you study? Were you at uni?
History.
History.
Yeah, it's been
so
of no use
what was
for
the
anything.
dream you had?
At that point, I'd caught the broadcasting bug. And I went round the kind of society fair in Freshers Week at Birmingham University in 1992 and saw something called Guild TV. So I went across and asked what that is. And said, we've got a TV studio and the Guild of Students. We do programmes throughout the week that go out in all the bars within the Guild. And, we're always looking for people to help out, be runners, which is kind of the lowest rung on the ladder in broadcasting, kind of getting teas and coffees and maybe doing some research and stuff. And within 6 months, I had my own show on a Friday. So I caught the bug. I just thought, I love communicating. I love presenting. And this is what I'm going to go for when I come out of university.
Wow. And how amazing at, what were you, like 21 or something?
Yeah, I think I had a gap year. So about 22 when I came out of university.
But it's quite a young age to kind of know what you want to do and then have done another 30 years or whatever
I feel really
in broadcasting.
Fortunate when I look at Ethan now, who's 15. I'm thinking, what do you really want to do? And he doesn't know yet. I was quite fortunate that quite early on something went in my head and
direction.
Said, this is where you're heading. Will you get there? I don't know.
Yeah. And so what was the step from leaving uni? Was Blue Peter your first job?
Well, first broadcasting job, yeah.
But my gosh.
I had 2 years working in Selfridges in London because I couldn't afford to be in London.
On the shop floor?
And not working. Yeah, Hugo Boss.
Which would have been brilliant for broadcasting. You're talking to people all the time.
Most of the time telling people where the loos are. So we're quite near the loos.
Yeah, okay.
Just down
so
there
maybe
on
not
the left.
so brilliant
I can still remember where they were.
Yeah.
But I used to do runners' jobs at night. So I used to run at LBC Radio in London, which was on Hammersmith Road at the time. I had a job running at CBBC on weekend mornings. If I wasn't working on a Saturday, I'd do Saturday morning. And I'd do every Sunday morning. You don't get paid for it. But you kind of got your foot in the door, so you'd meet people. But I'd actually turn my back on it because after 3 years, I got nowhere. And I thought, I don't want to carry on working at Selfridges. So I was working for a charity called the Oasis Trust with Steve Chaw and got a job there in the end. And I'd kind of finished with it. And then this kind of sliding doors moment happens where Richard Bacon, who was presenting on the show at the time, got sacked for being outed for using Class A drugs. Not really something you can do as a Blue Peter presenter. And someone came up to me in the office and said, you've got to give it one last go. And I was like, no, I can't. And then I thought, no, I've got nothing to lose.
Wow.
And
what did you do?
2 months later.
What did you write? A letter? Send a show reel?
I'd actually presented on this charity video for Oasis. So I had something reasonably new, put that in the post a week after he went. And 2 months later, I got the job.
Wow.
I know.
And the rest is history. And what was your, if you could go back and live one day again, what would it be?
Oh, wow. What a question. One day. This is going to sound a really odd thing to say because it's not actually me doing my job at the time, but because when I think back to this day, I think that's why the job was so incredible because you didn't know necessarily what was about to happen next. So I was at the end of my kind of summer break and I knew that my first job back on Blue Peter at the start of the new term, before the show went back on air in September, I was going to Belize to dive the Blue Hole, which is this amazing place in the middle of the ocean, just by Belize. And we were going to spend 2 weeks filming there, doing other stuff as well. So I was really excited about this. So when you think for most people going back to work after the holiday, you get the post-holiday blues, like, oh. And I remember sitting on a wall in Aramanche, I think, in France, about to head to Calais to get the ferry back. So I know that in a few days' time, I'll be getting ready to go to Belize. My phone goes and I can see it's a withheld number. I'm thinking it's probably work. So I picked it up, hello. And it was one of the directors, Jess. And she said, hi, Simon, sorry to disturb you on holiday. I said, no, it's fine, it's fine. She says, listen, this is all very last minute. she said, have you heard of the film Finding Nemo? I said, no. She said, well, it's a big Disney Pixar film's about to be released.
Yeah.
Anyway, we want to do something on it. And she gave me a quick synopsis of the film about this clownfish in the Barrier Reef in Australia.
What a brief. Yeah.
And I'm like, right.
Doesn't sound great. Yeah.
And she said, I know you're going to Belize in 10 days' time, but we really, because you're the only trained diver out of the 4 presenters, we need you to go to Australia on Sunday.
No.
To dive the Great Barrier Reef for 3 days. And I'm like, oh,
Let me just think about it. Yeah.
And it was just, I don't know why I'm picking out that moment. There's so many I could pick, but it's just in terms of those moments you just catch yourself on and go, wow, what a privilege to do this. I'm already going to Belize, and now I'm going for a whistle-stop 6-day trip to Townsville in Australia to dive the Great Barrier Reef, to see one of the wonders of the world, and then coming back and going to see this amazing blue hole in Belize. And I thought, on that day, I just remember it so vividly, thinking, I'm a really blessed person to be doing this.
Yeah. And if you could go back and look at that period of time, like, is there anything you'd say to yourself then, now knowing what you know about that time?
I think I knew it already, because Peter Purvis, for people of a certain generation, they will remember him. He was on Blue Peter in the 70s. He was with John Noakes and Valerie Singleton. So a lot of older people will certainly remember those 3. And we used to see the other presenters quite a bit, because sometimes we would do dramas on Blue Peter and some of the old presenters would come and act in them. Peter was always very quick to put his hand up, just to keep his hand in with the old programme. And I remember him telling me and Matt Baker very early on, he said, just enjoy every moment. It goes like that.
Yeah.
And that really stuck with me, because even at that time in life, I think life, I don't know why, it just gets quicker the older you get. Life was already going quite quick. And it just was something I held on to, because I knew that it was going to be a shortish time. 6 years is good, but compared to some people's careers, that's quite short.
Yeah.
But it was around about that time I thought, if I'm good on the show, I'm successful, I'll probably be here for 5 or 6 years. That was kind of the standard period people spend on the show. And so I was very aware early on that I've really got to make the most of this. Yes, like I said, you'll have those days where, like any job, it's a bit like, but just live it, rinse it, enjoy it, appreciate it. And I think because there wasn't social media back then, there was the internet, we had mobile phones, but not the smartphones now. It allowed you to appreciate things a lot more. So when you went on those trips, there wasn't the need, I'm in Belize, diving the blue hole, get it on Insta. Yeah. There was none of that.
Just enjoy the moment.
And what I did was I took photos with my proper old Canon camera.
Wow.
And I've got probably 15 albums at home, because someone said to me, you'll probably never watch all this back. I've still got all the tapes, not of every show. I might get them digitized soon, put them on DVD. But I've got all these albums. So my snapshots of those times. So I probably wouldn't change anything, because I knew that it was a finite job. It was going to be gone in a flash, and it was. So enjoy every moment. And there were moments I didn't enjoy dressing up, missing an England quarter-final in the Euros because we were doing a drama on a Saturday afternoon. Moments like that didn't enjoy. But by and large, I knew I had to rinse this out, because this wasn't going to last forever.
Yeah. And did you, obviously, this is basically your first job out of, well, not your first job, because you went and did some other things, but first broadcasting job. Yeah. What did you learn that has stuck with you from that moment to what you do today? You're now at Sky Sports Saturday, both live shows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So well, that was the biggest lesson. Yeah. Live TV is very different to recorded TV.
Tell it why.
Because you can't do it again. It's pure adrenaline. So when that music you played right at the start, we'd have a countdown in our ear from probably 5 minutes still on air, 2 minutes, and then 1 minute, and then 30 seconds, 10 seconds still on air. Then that kicks in, and that's the moment you talk about that mask. You go eyes and teeth. Here we go, and you can't do it again. And it's been such a valuable tool, because I've got colleagues who only ever did pre-recorded TV. So they might pre-record a show that you'd watch at home and think's live, but it wasn't. Yeah. And it's such a different skill, because there's that edge to it, but there's also that slight fear in that that whatever comes out your mouth is going to be broadcasted. Yeah. I mean, thankfully back then we didn't have immediate rewind TV, didn't have Sky Plus, didn't have social media. So mistakes weren't instantly clipped up on social media like they are now and put on social media within minutes of it happening. But it just gave me so much valuable training for what I went on to do in sport, because then I could learn about the art of being a sports broadcast journalist without having to worry about all the kind of bits of live TV, like listening to people in your ear, taking directions, looking at the right camera, because I'd done 6 years of that already. So from that point of view, it trained you for absolutely everything.
And it is amazing how when you look back at your life, not that you're super old, but like
I'm getting on.
When you look and you can actually weave the moments of going, oh my gosh, that experience totally set you up for what you went on to do. Before we go on to your next, what's it like? I do want to touch on the Blue Peter badge.
Iconic.
Iconic is the word. You are our mental health ambassador for our May campaign. And as part of that, we send yellow boxes of recognition to people in the post, as you know, with a badge.
And that's
which
what
is a
I
pin,
love.
which is why you're the ambassador. Which is why, and we're going to have you running around the country
symmetry, Annika.
with the back. We're bringing it back. I'll also be in a helicopter. We'll bring in Challenge Annika in there. All of the
Can
TV
I
shows.
out the back of a chin-up like I did once? Yeah.
We'll do it. But could you just talk to the badge? Because there is symmetry
talk to the badge
here.
Or about the badge?
The Blue Peter badge. And I guess because it ties in with why we've chosen a badge. And it really is about recognising people. My sister got a Blue Peter badge for drawing like a beach hut scene in Norwich or something.
But she went
Norfolk.
to the effort of drawing it and sending it in.
I didn't get a badge.
And would have got a badge.
But it was really powerful.
Yeah.
And could you just share why and what was your most memorable badge that you gave? And
so the bizarre thing is I've left the show nearly 20 years ago this April. So it's pretty much 20 years ago. I still find them occasionally in places, like in a cupboard.
I've got all sorts of thoughts about where you're finding them.
I've got a whole bag at home full of them. It was an iconic thing because it was the ship. The Blue Peter was a flag raised on the voyages of discovery. That's where it comes from, and so the badge was there from the start of the program. And I've heard tales of films being made on Blue Peter back in the day where the presenter had gone on and made the film without a badge, and the whole film never saw the light of day because the editor, Biddy Baxter, fearsome lady, when the original editors wouldn't let it go to air. So it was so important. It was the symbol of the show. And so I remember putting it on for the first time because I never won a badge when I was young. Yeah. So the first time I ever got to wear one was as a presenter. It was amazing.
Wow.
I remember also getting on a tube really quickly after work one time and I was still wearing it on the tube and I thought, this is so embarrassing because everyone thinks I'm probably just trying to draw attention to myself.
He's just really keen on the job.
But it was just, I don't know, it was a really powerful symbol of the show. And my most famous moment giving a badge was a gold Blue Peter badge to Her Majesty the Queen as part of her Golden Jubilee. She came to visit Blue Peter.
Wow.
And she came in, there was a big long line of ex-editors, ex-presenters, and the 4 current presenters were at the end of the line. And I was given the task of handing over a gold Blue Peter badge to the Queen, which was an amazing moment.
And recognising her,
I'm, in the grand list of all the awards she's ever had, and all the jewels and crowns she's ever had, I don't know where a Blue Peter gold badge stands. Yeah. But she loved getting it.
It was an
amazing moment.
Yeah.
Blue Peter badge and a gold one.
Yeah. And ultimately it was a symbol that it also kids and lots of other people who got them. Yeah, yeah. Just to say,
and it wasn't just, it wasn't, in terms of aspiration as a symbol, it wasn't something only available to people who worked on the programme. It was available to everyone. If you wanted to write in and draw a picture, you can get a badge as well, be part of this amazing programme. Yeah,
it's so cool. Just taking a little pause to tell you about something really special. Is there anyone in your life that you would like to recognise? Perhaps someone has been there for you through thick and thin and has never given up on you. Or perhaps you know someone right now who's going through it and they just need to know that you see them, you value them, you love them, and you recognise them. If you'd like someone to know that you're thinking of them, you can do that in our latest Recognise Mental Health campaign run by the Recognise Foundation with the one and only Simon Thomas, who you're listening to right now, as our campaign ambassador. To recognise someone in our campaign, all you have to do is head to the Recognise Instagram page, which is Recognise Store. There you can find the campaign post where you can tag a loved one to recognise. We'd love to know what this person means to you and why you're recognising them. And once you've commented, they'll receive a link to fill in details to receive a box of recognition in the post. All I will say is it's the most beautiful yellow box you've ever seen and goes a long way in helping someone know that they're seen, valued and not alone. Head to therecognisefoundation.com to find out more about how you can help change someone's day, one act of recognition at a time. Your next What's It Like is what's it like to live with anxiety? I actually breathe a huge sigh of relief that you talk about this and that
Yeah.
this is one of your What's It Likes, because, oh my gosh, Blue Peter presenter, Mr. Soccer, Sky Sports, Saturday Man. It'd be so easy to look at you, not knowing, as people will find out to your story, but like not knowing those things and think, oh, he's got it all together. Doesn't struggle with any of those things. And I know that's not true. When did anxiety show up for you? How's that looked like throughout your life, career?
I never had any anxiety problems on Blue Peter. And in fact, for the first 10 years or so at Sky, never had anxiety problems. And I think sometimes people who've never experienced anxiety do get it confused with worries, like worrying. Like worrying for me is based on reality. So worrying about whether you might not have a job in a couple of months' time. Yeah, it might be for some people based on nothing, but actually for a lot of people who are worrying about it, it's based on a truth that is in your companies may be struggling and there are redundancies happening.
Distinction,
so it's an absolutely valid worry to have. It might be a worry over your health. You can feel something's not right at the moment. So again, it's a valid worry. It might be a worry over being able to pay your bills right now because of the cost of living crisis. Again, that's a real worry. Anxiety is often based on nothing that's actually
totally
really
irrational.
there. It's just irrational. So I had nothing on that front for ages. And then it really came in the autumn of 2017. So by this point, I'm doing the Premier League on Sky. So kind of worked my way up from starting on Sports News, Sky Sports News back in 2005, doing the Football League, ended up on the Premier League. I'd done a whole season, started the next season, absolutely no problem at all. And then literally woke up one morning and felt this horrible kind of knotted, sick feeling in your stomach. You know, like, if you remember sort of ahead of a big exam and maybe you've not worked as hard as you should and you're really anxious about it, that kind of feeling, and suddenly really anxious about work and how it was going to go, and starting to kind of almost catastrophize work and doing live games that I'm going to ask all the wrong questions, that the pundits I'm sat with are not going to give me any answers, and it's just all going to be an absolute disaster. This literally came out of nowhere. It's like something had landed on my shoulder and was beginning to fill my mind with untruths.
Total like ruminating.
And it was really massively disconcerting. Like it was horrible because it felt like the foundations on which I'd built my career were beginning to reverberate. Like suddenly I'm feeling quite a nervous wreck. I'd remember traveling to games, particularly one game I can remember going down to do a League Cup game down in Swansea. And it's a Wednesday lunchtime and I'm on the train. It's an evening kickoff. And I'm looking through my notes as I normally would, and I can't focus on anything. I feel sick. I'm going to the loo literally every 5 minutes. So my body's in a really bad place mentally.
That physical.
It's physically manifesting itself. I'm actually ending up having kind of conversations with myself out loud. There are other people in the carriage, but at that point I don't care. And I'm telling this voice inside my head that's saying it's going to be a disaster, that it's going to be okay. And really, I've struggled with that on and off for the last few years. I'd say where I am now, it's the best it's ever been, as in it's a lot less a part of my life than it was. But I know that I've described it before on social media as a little bit like an open window. If you leave a window open in your house, the wind kind of comes and goes as it pleases. 1 minute, the room's very calm. The next minute, a gust comes in and it blows paper off the table. That's really how anxiety is for me now, that some days I'm absolutely fine. I'll go into Soccer Saturday. And I really battled last season. So my first season was last season on Soccer Saturday. And for those who don't know the programme, I'd taken over from a presenter called Jeff Stelling, who'd done it for 25 years. He started with the show, grown with the show, had become a colossus of sports broadcasting, phenomenally good at what he does. And it's an incredibly complicated show. You are covering 9 leagues every Saturday between 12 and 6. We average around 65 to 70 games that I'm keeping across every Saturday. So it's a real head screw. But it's an amazing show. But I was asked to apply for it after he decided he was leaving. And I was just a mess because I thought this is an amazing opportunity. Having had a few years in the career wilderness for reasons we'll probably touch on in a bit, I had this amazing opportunity to apply for an amazing show. But I was just so anxious about replacing him, imposter syndrome, that feeling you're not good enough to do something, even though people are telling you you are going to be good enough, was really heavy and loud in my head. And then I get the job after a summer of interviews and I take on this colossal show and I take over from this guy, and imposter syndrome is massive. I can never be as good as him. I'm never going to come close to Jeff. In fact, I said in my first show, my opening piece was, if I could be half as good as Jeff was, I'd have done something right. And anxiety was a huge part of that last season, really going through the mill every Saturday morning, kind of getting out on a Saturday morning. I'd get home on a Saturday night and know that I wasn't in a good place, because I'd come home and feel that relief that I had 7 more sleeps till I had to do it again.
Oh,
and I thought, this is not
it's
a good place to be.
yeah.
And Doreen, my wife, was quite worried and thinking, is this the right thing to have taken on? Because anxiety is really exhausting.
So exhausting.
Because you're battling with untruths,
Yeah.
you're battling with things. And I get to the end of a show, like every time when I battled with it the first time at Sky, and nothing's gone wrong.
Yeah.
All those things that I said were
Yeah.
going to go wrong, or that voice was saying were going to go rubbish, were fine.
Yeah.
And yet I'd get home on a Saturday night last season and be like, 7 more sleeps. And I'd count them down. This season, I think...
Yeah, what's changed?
Well, I think being teetotal, which I have been for 3 years, I had a bad relationship with alcohol for a long time. A lot of that born out of what I went through in 2017. And that's made a big difference. I think if you self-medicate when it comes to anxiety, particularly with alcohol, it turns everything up to volume 10. It'll suppress it for a while and then make things a whole lot worse. I exercise a lot more regularly. It wasn't that I was really unfit, but I wasn't doing an awful lot. So I've really got big on exercising. Faith is massively important to me. You know, as a Christian, I get on my knees and pray ahead of every single soccer Saturday. I sit in my dressing room at 11:30, half an hour before we go on air, just collecting my stuff together. We've had our production meeting and I get on my knees and I pray, because I believe that God has given me this amazing opportunity to do this job. And he goes before me into that studio. For me, without him, I can't do it.
Such a
So
a
I
relief.
pray every week, and
Wow.
I pray against the anxiety. And this season, it feels like just this huge weight has been lifted off. But as I was saying earlier, I know there can be just this random Saturday that maybe something unbeknown to me has triggered something, and I'll be like arriving thinking, oh, I feel in not a good place today.
Yeah.
But as much as I wish that wasn't the case, this might sound odd, I'm okay with it. Because
Okay.
I know it'll be okay.
Yeah.
I know I can handle it. I know I can live with it. Yeah, I wish it wasn't there on that Saturday. And then next Saturday, it'll probably be fine again.
But has that been a journey of getting to that acceptance of it?
Yeah.
Because I think, you said at the beginning, suddenly it was out of nowhere. You've never struggled with it.
It's
I think
hugely disconcerting if you've not
It's so
struggled with it
disconcerting.
before.
And I think every person I genuinely believe will experience some mental health problem, like illness or struggle at some point in their lives. We all know steady Eddies.
Steady Eddie.
I have a couple of family who's so steady, and I'm like, oh, I just want to be like you. I am the complete opposite. I am like this all the time. It's so exhausting.
It is.
But there are really good things that make me the way I am because of those things as well, emotionally. But that's a sidetrack. So the first time that you experience a mental health issue, I genuinely believe most people will experience a mental health problem at some point in their lives. But the first time you do it, it's so like, like, what's going on? Like, and you suddenly are like...
It's frightening.
I remember I was 18 the first time I kind of experienced what I now would say was like depression, depressive thoughts, and being like, am I going to be like this forever? Have I always been like this? And I'm just waking up now and realizing that I'm like this. And it was so isolating and alone. And, we've come a long way in talking about mental health. But,
massively.
But it's still, I don't know, particularly with men's mental health, do you still think there's a stigma? Do you still think it's...
I think less so, but I still think there is a bit of one. I think it's getting men to a place where they feel comfortable talking about it. But I think we have to be careful. And this is something I've learned over the last few years, Annika, is that talk is massively important. But I think particularly when it comes to men, but actually anyone struggling with mental health, is that there's an action as well. As in, for me, it's all very well talking about anxiety, but what am I going to do about it?
Yeah.
What am I going to do to help myself with this? Because talking about it helps me. Being vulnerable about it is like a superpower. It's actually a sign of strength. But it also takes something on my part to do something about it. Okay, what can I do? Well, one of the things I can do is, for me, that's worked, is taking alcohol out of my life. Making sure I'm exercising, making sure my faith is vibrant and real and alive.
Yeah.
So there are things we have to do, but I think for men, it's getting men to a place where they feel more able to be honest and open with people around them. And I think for too long, particularly amongst men, vulnerability has been seen as a real weakness. And actually, this is what we don't do, particularly in the world of sport, where there's a lot of machoism still. But, there are so many footballers who struggle. You know, we don't see this side of the game, but the guys who can't get into the first team anymore, they've been brought to a new club, they cannot get in the first team. The guys who come back from a long-term injury and then get injured again, so they're spending months upon months not being able to do what they love, watching their teammates playing. A lot of them mentally go to a really bad place, and the mental struggles that all professional sportsmen and women have when that day comes, and they know it will come, when they cannot do what they love anymore. The tennis career comes to an end because their body's too old to do it anymore. The mental health challenge, when something that they lived and enjoyed for so long that gave them structure and purpose
identity
in life is gone.
Yeah.
It's a massive challenge. And so for men, it's wanting to just encourage men to say, do you know what? Being open and honest that you're struggling, whether it be with anxiety, whatever it might be, isn't weakness, it's strength.
Yeah. And did you see Jamie Lang did his ultra marathon this week, and he was on Radio 1 just sobbing, saying, I used to for so long think it wasn't okay to talk about these things. And now I realize it made me really emotional. He said, talking about it is a strength, and not talking about it makes you weak. And it just was so powerful. Yeah. And this, I think we are seeing more men kind of break down these kind of macho stereotypes. And it's really, and you're a big part of that, Simon. And I guess one question I have for you, like personally, is you obviously live TV, you talk about, you have this moment where you cannot hide. You can't hide. Yeah. So, you know, you've given some examples of no alcohol, faith, exercise, and I guess they're kind of like your foundations, right, that are keeping you strong. But then you have those moments that come and you've got to perform. And I was thinking about it, and I was like, that is so challenging in those moments where you cannot hide, like film's going, off you go. Well, how on earth do you handle those moments? But then I think related to people that might be listening, I think everyone in their lives, actually, I think that's quite a relatable scenario, even if you're not on TV. We've all got moments where mental health is seeping in, and you've got people that rely on you. You've got a job to show up with. You've got all these things, and it'd be so easy in those moments to just check out and be like, I cannot do it. But actually, I think there's a lot more growth, and sometimes you just got to get through. So how did you get through in those moments? But is there anything people could take away that might apply more generally for how to get through?
Well, it's kind of fight or flight for me anyway, because either I fly away from the situation and go, I'm in such an anxious place today, I can't face doing what I'm doing, or I fight, and that is that I overcome what I'm doing. Because, you know, if you're training for something like a marathon, you're going to have to go through pain and discomfort in order to get to a place where you can do the marathon on that day when it comes. And it's only by going through that pain that gets you into the place where you can do it. And so I kind of realized that the only way I was going to conquer this anxiety was to keep pushing through, because it would have been easier to turn your back on it and go, do you know what, it's beaten me, I need to do something else. Yeah. But you gain strength by confronting something. Something really interesting happened to me in kind of 2018. I met with my head of football. So at this point, I'd left Sky after everything that happened in that period. And he was chatting to me about those games that I did in the Premier League when I was really struggling, as I was talking about earlier, that trip to Swansea, the panic attacks I'd get before going on air, very, very close to going on air. And he said, having heard me talk to him about how bad it was and what was going on behind the scenes that they weren't aware of. Yeah. He said, I went back and watched those games that you did. If anything, your performance level was up. On where it normally was. He said, not that you weren't performing before, but there was something different about you. And I found that incredible, in that my mind at the time was struggling so much with overwhelming anxiety and panic attacks. And yet in amongst that, my mind had the ability, when I went on air, to fight and actually produce. And that gave me real confidence. So when I finally went back to doing live football, I did a few Premier League games over the years for Amazon Prime Video. And I went back a few years ago to do my first ever live game since everything had happened a few years before. And I was scared witless. I was anxious. And I thought, is everything I felt all those months ago when I was doing it before going to come back? And I did feel anxious. But by doing it, I realized that, yes, I do feel some of those things again, but I gain strength by facing it down and not running away. So I'd say to people, however hard it is, the easier thing is to run away, but it's probably a regret you're going to live with for quite a while. The harder thing is to confront it, but you will gain strength from confronting it. It might be that you always will experience situations in work and life with an element of anxiety. It might be with you for a long, long time, but you will gain strength to live with it and deal with it by continually confronting things. And I think last season on Soccer Saturday, by going back time and time again on a Saturday, obviously I've got the push of needing to earn money for my family, but going back to it each week and not picking up the phone and saying, I'm just in an anxious place, can't do this week, you gain that strength. And now this season, I feel like I've reaped the rewards of that and the benefit of going
sticking
hard,
in it,
sticking at it. And the anxiety by and large is gone.
Wow. It feels like you've tackled it head on rather than, like you say, letting it wipe you out. And I'm so glad you said that, because I think there is so much, I was going to say the word discourse, but it's a very sort of interesting word, discourse. There's a lot of discourse, but there's a lot of conversation that would say, oh my gosh, just like kind of just take care of yourself, just stop doing what you're doing, stop everything, and just like hunker down and winter this season till you're feeling better. And like, I completely agree with you. I think sometimes that is needed. Sometimes there is serious mental illnesses that honestly like might really wipe you out for a period of time.
Yeah, 100%.
That can happen.
Yeah.
But there is also, like you're saying, when there's that mental fragility, sometimes the best thing to do is to just take it head on and push through it, and you will overcome it, and you can become to keep it in check in your life, where it's not like ruling you, but you can kind of rule it. And when you were talking about kind of how you performed, how your boss thought you performed better in that period of time, there's Brené Brown in one of her books, she says this quote which says, there's a crack in everything, that's how the light gets in.
Yeah, I've seen that kind of
And I just, that's just what came to mind. And I think it's so beautiful. It's so inspiring. And it's right. You can now go back to every time you present and think, oh, you kind of built yourself evidence as well. You build yourself confidence, don't you, of showing up for yourself. And that builds that confidence. Just taking a little pause to tell you about Recognise, who brings you the Recognise What's It Like podcast. At Recognise, we give recognition to individuals, charities and causes to raise awareness, spark conversations and bring solidarity. Our award-winning jewellery brand creates beautiful jewellery that supports powerful causes, and 100% of profits from iconic statement pop-ons are donated to our partner charities. Head to recognisestore.com to find out more and use the code SIMON to get 15% off your purchase. Your next What's It Like, you have touched on this a little bit, alluding to it, and it is, what's it like to find life and purpose again after loss? And before you kind of talk into this, I guess just to give, I'll give a bit of context in a sec to this for people who might not know your story. But again, gosh, I've got so many pictures for you today, but this is the final picture I had for you. It will blow your mind. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
You might already know it. But you know the phrase, we rise on wings like eagles?
Yeah.
So like eagles, why is it like eagles? I'll tell you. So eagles live for about 70 years. And when they get to 40, around 40, they basically, their talons start to get really weak so they can't grasp things. Their feathers get too heavy so they can't fly. And their beak starts to bend so they can't grab things. And basically around that time, eagles have to fly off to a mountain and sit on the mountain. And they basically go through a period of about 150 days where they go through something so excruciatingly painful that actually a lot of eagles die. And basically what they have to do is they break their beak on a rock and when the new beak grows back, they start tearing out their talons. And when new talons grow back, they start pulling out their feathers. And then they get new feathers, and it's a period of 150 days. And after that 150 days, they go on to live for 30 years and they fly higher than they've flown before. And they're renewed.
Wow. Do you know, I've never heard that.
Isn't that extraordinary?
Well, I've watched a lot of David
like
Attenborough
eagles,
years.
I know. But I honestly, this came to mind for you.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how you have got through what you've got through. Like, I don't know how someone faces what you went through. And now I look at your life and I'm like, you know, grief always stays with us. Again, I'll give context in a sec, but you have found life and you've found purpose and you found love and you found a reason to live and hope. And I'm like going to sit back and let you speak as to how on earth you do that and what that journey looked like and how you rose again. For people who don't know your story, in 2017, you really tragically lost your wife very suddenly. And you you do have a son, Ethan, who was how old? 8 at the time.
Yeah.
And I would describe that as the absolute unimaginable. It'd be my worst nightmare.
Yeah.
As it would be many people. And yet, you know, 8 years on, something
nearly
like
8 years.
8 years. Here you are. You've met and found Arena. You've had 2 beautiful children together. You're doing your dream job. I would say one of your dream jobs. I don't know. I think it's your dream job.
Yeah, it is.
You know,
it's amazing.
and you're in many ways, you found life and purpose. Yeah. And so I would love you just to share a little bit about what those last 8-9 years have looked like for you.
So I think it's important to say everybody's story is going to be different. And people might be watching this, listening to this and thinking, well, that's a very different story to my experience of what happened after loss. But I always try and encourage people by trying to give them hope that there's a way through. I'll be honest to say that when Gemma died very suddenly in 2017, I didn't really feel there was any kind of hope left, really. My sole purpose in life at that point was to somehow cling on to life through that period and somehow be dad to Ethan and get him through school the next 3 years, kind of carry him through his grief. And then really I felt that was it life-wise. I've kind of done my bit. That was my kind of duty, however hard it was going to be. And that was as hope-filled as I was at that point. You know, grief is incredibly painful, like really, really painful. It's very confusing as an adult, as a father as well, because there's so many layers to it. And when someone dies young, she was 40, there's the grief over the lost years, the years they should have had, but they didn't get. You know, it was a very different grief to what I had for my dad when he died during COVID.
Totally. Really
sad. Wasn't off COVID, but it was during that period. But he'd had a good long life. So it was a very different grief. And I described that initial period was really like if your life is like a rich and vibrant, colourful painting with its imperfections, because nobody's life, nobody's marriage, nobody's family is perfect. Of course it's not. It felt like in that period, the colour had been drained away. The tiny bit of colour left was Ethan. But that was it. And I just felt devoid of hope. And I think it comes back to what I was saying earlier about with anxiety and how I've dealt with it, in that, yes, talking about it and talking about how I was feeling with friends and family and a counsellor was massively important to process what was going on and why you were feeling the way you were feeling. That was really, really, really important. Not bottling up emotions and letting them out, and vocalising how you felt was hugely important in terms of healing and progressing and walking, learning to walk again. That's how I describe it. In the early days, you're just trying to get through the day and survive the day.
Yeah.
It's really as far as you can get Ethan to school, get him back, get him fed, get him to bed. And then you learn to crawl again and walk again. And one day maybe you run again. I don't know. But it just felt very little purpose anymore. And I was just I think I was just surviving for those first few weeks. But like I said earlier, there has to come a moment where you need to make a decision on what you're going to do with the situation you're now in, with the card that life has dealt you. Are you going to let this thing define you forever? Are you going to remain stuck in this place that is black and white and feeling hopeless forevermore? Or are you going to choose life again in whatever shape or form that comes, knowing that it can never be the same as what came before? Because every single one of us, you, me, we are unique. We're different. Our fingerprints are totally different. Our personalities are different. Even though you've got 2 eyes, a nose, a mouth, 2 ears and hair, you look totally different to me. You know, there's a uniqueness, a God-inspired uniqueness about every single one of us. So it can't be the same again. But I believed the lie that it would never be good again. So that's where I was. And there came a moment really in the May of 2018, a really beautiful summer's day, really. It was wonderfully warm. And I just remember having this moment in the garden where we were living in Reading at the time, where we'd been as a family. And I felt this really strong anger towards this idea that everything now was second rate. Going forward, everything was going to be second best.
Yeah.
Life was going to be an imitation of what came before, but it was going to be kind of plan B. In fact, there's a book written called Plan B, which is about grief and loss. And it's a wonderful book, but I don't like the title of it.
Yeah.
And I know they would say that's not what it's saying.
Yeah.
I just didn't like this idea that my life now, however many more years I have, and Ethan's got pretty much the rest of his life ahead of him, is kind of second level plan B. I didn't like it. And on that day, I decided I wasn't having it. Like, I wanted to live again. I wanted life to be good again. I didn't know how it was going to become good again. I wanted the best for Ethan. I wanted him to have the best life he possibly could. Yes, he was always going to live with the sadness of the hole that his mum had left in his life. Of course he was. But why can't his life be good? Why can't it be rich? Why can't actually the experience that he's gone through, the emotional intelligence that he's had to learn way too early in life, why can't that be a blessing to others? Actually, why can't our story, my story, maybe one day to be a blessing to others? And so through gritted teeth and pain and battle with alcohol and loads of things, it was an absolute fight and scrap over the next few months. It really was, just to keep holding on to life. But there was something in me driving me forward to go, some point there is a life to be grabbed again.
Wow.
There is.
Yeah.
I refused to believe the lie of the world that it was just going to be rubbish from now on. And cutting a very long story short, meeting Dorina some time after all that happened, and being struck by this amazing woman who just had this incredible empathy for me and Ethan, but also wasn't part of the life that came before. A total surprise, like for me as a Christian, a God-shaped surprise. This person comes into my life and has this instant amazing rapport with Ethan. And as our relationship grew over those months, thinking, my goodness me, I'd have never expected this. Why would anyone love me again? I come with so much baggage, whether it's my mental health problems from a few years ago, whether it's the loss of my first wife, coming into the space of someone who's been there before and being a potentially a stepmom to Ethan and all those kind of things. No one's going to want to do that. And yet she did through her grace and her love and her patience, and at times her huge doubt that she could do it. And, I look back now and think my career was in tatters. I left Sky in 2018 through my own decision to look after Ethan, but I couldn't get my career back together again. And it's taken until really last season, getting Soccer Saturday, for that piece of the jigsaw. It was like rebuilding, putting the pieces back of a jigsaw where the picture had changed. There were some similar things in it. There was me, there was Ethan, there was my family, there was his family, side of the family, but there were going to be different parts to the picture. But it was going to take a while to find those different parts and place them in this new picture I believe God was creating through a really difficult period. I went through that kind of furnace of refinement through 2017 and 2018 and 2019. And I do believe, Annika, through what I've gone, that, I'm still a flawed human being, because we all are. But I believe I'm a better version of what was before, because of the way that
is huge,
the way that God has kind of re-sculpted me through that. So coming back to the eagle thing, I've gone through that pain of kind of being reshaped into a person who actually, I love life in a way perhaps I didn't before. And I feel sad saying that. And I would encourage people, don't wait for something like this to happen to you, and hopefully it won't, but we will face the loss of loved ones at some. Don't wait for that day to come. Don't wait for tomorrow, because no one's promised tomorrow, for you to appreciate what you already have.
Wow.
It's given me an amazing appreciation of life. And weird though this might sound to some people, I feel blessed, to be blessed with the life I have now, to see Ethan thriving. Yes, he's difficult at times because he's a teenager, but hey, that's all teenagers. To have the wonderful Talitha, the bundle of fun and energy that 2.5-year-old Talitha is, and Theo, who's just an amazing little boy, and to be with Dorina, and just, I have so much to be thankful for out of something nearly 8 years ago that felt like it was going to finish me, and it didn't.
And how, like, what would you say to people in that depths of despair right now, or who, I love what you said about not getting stuck and making that decision. I find that like so challenging, even for things that don't even in my mind compare to something as like big as losing, your wife. But like how, you said you made a decision. Then what did it look like? And what would you say to people in those kind of real moments? How do they find life?
So the first thing I'd say is, you've got to be kind to yourself. And I hated that phrase in the early days because I didn't really understand what it meant. When you go through something really traumatic in life, whether it is sudden loss, whether it is the breakdown in a relationship, whatever it might be, something that's really traumatic, you feel like life-wise you're in a storm that kind of doesn't abate. And I would encourage people during those periods, it just feels like just as things are beginning to calm down and maybe you're just feeling a little bit more steady, another wave comes and bangs you on the back and forces you under again, is just hold on to that rock with everything you've got. My temptation in those first few weeks, Mum, was to let go. I wasn't even ready to start thinking about life beyond the storm. So in those first few weeks and months of whatever you're going through, it might just be weeks, but it might be longer. I would just encourage people, hold on with every strength you got, because it's going to sap you of energy. Particularly grief is going to drain you of energy, drain you mentally. And actually surviving each day is a victory in itself. So getting to the end of the day, still here, still crawling, still doing life, is a win. So in those first few weeks and months, just hold on, because I promise you that at some point the storm will begin to calm, and it will begin to calm down, and the waves will begin to be a little less choppy and a little less heavy and a little less severe. The wind will begin to drop. And it's at that point, as things begin to come a little calmer, and there'll be periods where it'll just whip up again out of nowhere. That's the point at which you start looking for where you're going. And you start to see the shoreline. And it might be the different shoreline to what you remember, but start swimming towards it. It takes an act of will to do that. It takes that moment you go, yeah, I'm never going to forget what happens. It's always going to be with me. But now I choose life. And now I choose to start swimming towards the shore again, in the knowledge that at some point, probably as I swim towards the shore, I get whacked in the head by another wave of grief or trauma or whatever it might be. But I'm still going to keep going, and eventually my feet will touch the bottom, and I'm going to begin to walk, and I begin to pull myself free of the sea. And here I am in a new place with all the memories of what came before, beautiful and some of them painful as well, but in somewhere new where there is a life to be enjoyed, a life to be grasped. But you have to make the decision to go after it.
I think that's the perfect place to end. It's such a message of hope. And you know, I that idea that the storm has to end. The storm has to end. It actually is impossible for a storm to go on forever. I'm in total awe of your strength, your courage, your bravery, the ability to show up and to just be such a beacon of hope for people and to share your story. Thank you for sharing it, because
pleasure. You
don't have to. I always say to people, you could have not said any of this. You could have not written a book. You could have given up.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful that you didn't, and you held on.
Thank you.
Is there anything else you'd like to say? And is there anyone you'd like to recognise? Everyone gets an opportunity on the Recognise podcast to recognise someone.
This is an obvious person to recognise, but I want to recognise Dorina because I know she's done some stuff for you guys over the years.
Love her.
And just to recognise her as an amazing woman. I know that sounds an obvious thing to say, but I think there is something uniquely beautiful, but also uniquely challenging about becoming a stepmom. Because you are taking the decision to love someone who isn't yours. And that's an incredible gift. And that she recognised me. She recognised there was someone there beyond the tragedy of what had happened. And there was someone worth investing in. And she's absolutely worth investing in. So I want to recognise her, not because she's my wife, but she's amazing. She's a beautiful woman to look at, but her greater beauty is actually in here.
Yeah.
She has an amazing
100%.
heart for people. And I'm incredibly blessed to be with her.
Simon, thank you so much. This
I've
has
loved it.
Honestly been amazing.
F1 podcast next.
Yeah, make it happen. Introduce me. Thank you for joining us for the Recognise What's It Like podcast. We hope this chat has brought you hope and connection, has left you feeling inspired, and above all, has made you feel seen, valued, and recognised to the core. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.